So let's start off with the first slide. That's a good place to start. So, okay, so like a CPD event today. So what I thought we wanted to cover really was, I wanted to first of all say something about the past, about what has been achieved by PTSD resolution and the evidence of what's been achieved that is available to us through your efforts and the data that's gathered within Pragmatic Tracker. Then I want to move on to talk about the present, and obviously we've recently in the last month had this update to a significant update to Pragmatic Tracker, which seems to have bedded in pretty well now. A few initial teething problems here and there, which we've got over the hump of, and I think everybody is basically okay. And then finally, I want to just talk a little bit about the future and some ideas going forward around research that we could generate ourselves rather than relying on all these various bodies that we've beaten our head against the wall trying to get money out of for years. Some ideas about what we can do ourselves. And obviously throughout, it's only a small number of people here, so throughout you can just, you know, jump in anytime you like, just say, hey Bill, hang on a minute, tell me about such and such. So just mute or unmute yourself and just maybe wave so I can see I can't see all of the images actually, but can I do it? Oh, I can, like that. There we go. That's everybody, I think. Okay, so moving onto the past then. So it's over 11 years now since PTSD Resolution accepted its first referral. And recently on the most recent newsletter that was sent out from PTSD Resolution, I just noted this yesterday, we're on our 2,830th referral. So, you know, soon this is going to be pushing 3,000 referrals, which is fantastic, really. And they're flowing in at a rate of about one a day, seven referrals a week. Oh, somebody else has joined the meeting. Somebody's got a dog barking somewhere.
I was just about to, it's my dogs. I'm just about to try and turn off my mic.
Oh yeah, I can mute you if you like. Is it? Oh, you've done it, I think. Yeah, fine. So in terms of a picture painting 1,000 words, there's a new feature within Pragmatic Tracker available to all of you for assessing your own caseload called the scatter chart. And that's great as an individual level, and I'll say something about that in a little while, about how you can identify cases that maybe aren't progressing as you'd like them to be. But this is a way of aggregating all of that data together as well from all of you. So these are looking at data within Pragmatic Tracker of closed cases where there's either or both of a core 10 and an impact of event scale available at first point of measurement, like when they first start, and at the end of treatment as well. And so you can see there's 1,538 cases represented here, results on 2,500, meaning that's joining the two measures together. And the message about this, just zooming in on it a bit more, is basically this dotted line up here, the diagonal line running from bottom left to top right, represents the no change line. So a dot that's on that line means the score when they entered treatment was the same as the score when they left treatment. There was no change took place. Any dot that's to the right of that line shows an improvement. So in other words, your exit score is better than your entry score. And any dot that's to the left of that line shows a deterioration, where the exit score is actually worse than your starting out score. Now, obviously, what one wants to see is most people clustering on the right side of this dotted diagonal line. And as you can see, there are huge numbers here, far greater. It's probably about 3 out of 4 are the right side of the line, if you like. Of course, there's always going to be people the left side of the line. In an ideal world, everyone would get better, everyone would behave themselves, their core scores would improve, their impact of event scores would improve. Life isn't like that. But the fact is, the vast majority of clients do improve significantly under our care. And what that translates to, over here on this left side of the screen, you can see the average scores then. The average intake score of the core 10 is 23.4. Now let me point out, that is a very high average intake score. a typical primary care score that you might see out in the general population of people going to GPs, let's say, to access primary care services for psychological distress is 19. So this is 5 points, 4 or 5 points higher than that average. So that's that. In other words, what that is saying is this is a very distressed population. And you can see the enormous aggregate average improvement of the core comes from 23.4 down to 12.8, which is an enormous improvement. And similarly, with the impact of events from 51 down to 26. So huge improvements in aggregate of like the average improvement score. This translates then into what's called an effect size of 1.53. And an effect size is simply a measurement of the magnitude of change. The larger the amount of change, the larger the effect size. Now, all I need to really say about this is an effect size of 1 or more is a very large effect. So 1.5 is a really big effect and incredibly respectable. And I mean, the beauty about this to me is that here's an organization that, you know, doesn't just go on about making claims about the effectiveness of its treatment. It sets about methodically to measure every client that it sees routinely in the process of care and reports on it and has that information available live through Pragmatic Tracker at any point in time. So, you know, if anyone ever asks, well, how do we know that the work you do is any good? This picture tells that story very, very well. And of course, the question I would like to ask of other organizations is, show me something similar. Show me from your organization the results that you get from measuring your clients, every single client at a time, you know? So I suppose my point is that this 11 years of effort has yielded a fantastic fruit here, which shows the quality of the work that all you guys are doing day to day with a very difficult client population that's very distressed on average at intake. Okay, so that's my little reflection on the past, if you like. And as I say, anytime you have any questions or comments or anything like that, just jump in. I will also look in the chat. You can write stuff in the chat, so I can bring my attention to that in a while. Okay, so pointing out then about the updated version of Pragmatic Tracker as you have been using it now over the last weeks since it's been updated, and the understanding the new features in there, and just generally a word about improving data quality and communication between PTSD Resolution HQ, if you like, admin, and the practitioners out in the field. So what we're going to do now is jump over to Pragmatic Tracker. Where are we? Log out. And what I'm going to do now, hopefully this will work, is I'm logging in as a sample user. So this is a pretend person. Right. So you're all by now familiar with the validation code. This is two-factor authentication, similar idea to banks. And you'll have maybe heard my phone buzzing there. 10, 11, is that the one? Yes, 678175. 678175. I hope you're all okay with this process now. So that takes me in. So what I'm showing you here is I'm like, if you like, a new HG therapist who hasn't yet had a referral and has now been contacted by PTSD Resolution, and a client has been sent through. So this is in discussion with Carolina and Claire. This is how things will work from now on. So you'll get a message as well. There's a very nice new internal messaging system within Pragmatic Tracker. So admin, I opened this last night, so it didn't show up as unread as yet, but thanks for agreeing to take the case. You can make contact directly now, blah, 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 some information. So this is an internal secure messaging system. So it means you don't have to have external emails just in a normal email, and it's very secure. When you get a message internally within Pragmatic Tracker, you'll get a message that you've got a message. You'll get a depending on what your message preferences are, you'll either get an email or a text to tell you you've got messages. Obviously, it won't tell you the content of the message because that would defeat the whole purpose of the security. So that's saying, right, here's the client, and then that client is there on the list. And I, as the therapist, can go in here now, and I've got all the information about the client there. I've got their email address, their phone number, etc. And that it will arrive like this by default. And then if I want to see the screening information that was captured about the client, here it is. So this is what Carolina will have done with the client, and it's available for me to read so I can understand a lot about the history of the client before I've even made contact with them. Okay, now, so the first bit I want to bring your attention to is this bit. So the case, I should have saved that. The case should arrive to you like this. This is what we've agreed. So basically, Carolina or Claire will have done the verification of the mobile phone number of the client and the email address of the client. So these boxes should be ticked green here. That means that they've already checked, and usually they will do this at the screening on the telephone with the client. They'll just send them a text and an email. They'll ping on their phone, just like mine did there a minute ago, and they'll be able to say, yeah, that's me, grand, verified. So it should arrive to you like that. The default will also be set like this with message preferencing, email, SMS, and auto. Now, let me explain about that. And you may understand this already, but I'm just going to repeat it anyway. So the point of this is that as soon as an appointment is made, as soon as you create an appointment for this new client in Pragmatic Tracker will automatically send out a reminder to the client by email and SMS if you've chosen it, and it'll do it automatically 3 days before the appointment and 1 day before the appointment. So that's the first thing. It'll happen automatically. So they'll get either a text, either or both of a text and email, and you can decide if the email is working fine for the client. You can switch off. You could just simply switch off the SMS here like that. You can figure that out. Now, the bit I want to bring attention to is this including measures bit. So there's no confusion about this. So the default will be like this without this chosen. But this gives you the opportunity to choose what to do. Now, if it's me with a new client, I'm very happy to have links to measures go out to the client before I see them. I'll email them explaining about it and stuff like that, or I'll talk to them on the phone and I'll say, you're going to get a link to fill in some questionnaires. It's really helpful for both of us that I have a good sense of how things are for you at the moment before we meet, and we can discuss that. We can discuss all of that when you come in at your first session. I really like that. I like having that information available to me. But I'm well aware of the fact that there are some therapists, and maybe some of you guys, who are far happier to actually go through those questionnaires with the client in the room with you that first time. And that's perfectly fine. So this gives you the option. If you are me and you want the client to fill in the questionnaires before you actually come into the session, you would tick reminder 2. Now, why not reminder 1? Because reminder 1 by default comes out 3 days before the appointment. 3 days before the appointment is too soon, or sorry, too long before the appointment for people to fill in measures. You want them to fill in measures because you're asking about over the last week, including today. You want them to fill out the measure as close to the appointment as possible. So reminder 2 comes out 25 hours before the appointment. Therefore, if you want them to fill in the measures, you choose reminder 2. You would never really choose reminder 1. I hope that makes sense. I'm just going to pause for a moment and just switch off to share just to check on you guys and see are any of you struggling with any of that. Is that all making sense? Yeah?
Yeah, Doug, can I ask a question?
Of course, yes, Abigail, yeah.
So with that setting reminder, could you have it off for the first session, and then once you've seen the client and agree with them that they're happy to fill it in the next time via email, you could go into the profile and then tick it. Is that right?
Absolutely. That's a
Okay.
great point. Yeah. And that demonstrates that. So let me go back to my screen share again and get the right place there. Yeah. So what you're saying is it now by default, it will arrive. Let's say this is a new client referred to you, Abigail. It will arrive like this, right? With auto chosen. But you can say, actually, well, of course, you can leave the auto on just for the appointment reminder. That will simply be to remind them about the appointment, right?
Yeah.
Then they come in, they fill in the measures that first time, and then you think, right, actually, from now on, I'm happy for them to fill in the measures. So you'd go into profile and you'd simply do that. Okay. That's all you'd have to do and save it, you know? Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great. Okay.
Yeah, can I ask a question now, Bill?
Sure.
If we're not going to use reminder one, why is it there? Just seems
it is there anyway, right? So this is only about including measures with the link. The reminder will be there anyway. Now, if what you're saying is, Bill, look, I don't want to have I only want to remind my clients once about their appointment. I don't want to remind them twice, right? Now, I have to say, if I've got a physiotherapy appointment I had yesterday, a dentist appointment, a GP appointment, I will usually get, I'll get 2 reminders. I'll get one maybe a few days before and then another one the day before. I'm perfectly happy with that. It jogs my memory and all of that. And that's what Pragmatic Tracker is set up to do by default, right? However, you have the opportunity to override it. So let me show you how that works. So I go to create a new session. As you can see, the default is, sorry, I'll just change obviously the appointment won't be today. It'll be, let's say, the 7th of August at 10 o'clock. Okay, now watch what happens to the date and time. It changes to the 7th of August at 10 o'clock. I have to choose the appointment type. Now you see the reminder 1 automatically changes to the 4th of August at 10 o'clock, 3 days before. Reminder 2 automatically changes to the 6th of August at 9 o'clock, 25 hours before. I have a rationale for why it's 25 hours and I can't remember what it is. But anyway, it's basically about a day before. So, and you can see that the measures are included here, right? Now, if I'd forgotten to change it in profile, when I make this appointment and I think, actually, I don't want them to fill in measures at all beforehand, I want to do it in the room, I would simply untick that. And if you were saying, I only want to send 1 reminder, all you would do is simply delete that. You just take it out and then you'll have 1 reminder, right? Yeah. But the default is 2 reminders, 1 3 days before, 1 day before, and then you decide whether you want to include measures or not, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah. I think I was getting confused with sending out to the forms.
Yes.
That's why I was getting confused.
Yeah.
Was it, well, why
that's right, and that's why I wanted to take this time.
Yeah, I can understand that now, that we need just to send that with the forms the day before. That's
right, exactly. So you either, here you can have reminder 1 and reminder 2 include the measures link,
Yeah.
And obviously, the other thing to point out, I'll just keep that there. The other thing to point out is when you get a new client referred to you, by default, these will all be chosen like this, right, in client profile. Now, and I'll come to goals shortly, unless something is ticked for a session record, it won't present to the client, right? So by default, obviously your first appointment anyway, you would typically want all of this. Now you won't have goals identified yet. We'll come to goals shortly, but all of this would be chosen by default. But remember, when you create a new session for a client, and by the way, a change which you may not yet have noticed from the previous version 2 is that the editing of an appointment, supposing you make an appointment for somebody and then you have to change it, like they've contacted you, said, oh, I can't make Friday, can we do Wednesday week? You'll have to edit the date of the appointment. So the editing place, you go to your appointment, they want to come on the 9th of August, you go to this tool here, this little pencil thing, edit this appointment, you hover over it, that's what it says, and you go in and you can make that the 8th of August or whatever. And of course, once I do that, you could just see there all of the dates change accordingly as well to go along with it. So anything about an appointment, it might be, for example, that you didn't know that the session you're in is actually your completion appointment. So you set it up as a therapy appointment, but actually you know the client's really doing great, and you decide together with them, look, I tell you what, let's have a follow-up in a month, but let's say today is let's call it, call today the final day. Now, if that's the case, like this one is labeled assessment, if I want to change that, I simply go in here onto that editing tool, and I can change it to whatever I want, to completion or whatever it might be. Now, the opposite of this might also be true, where you think it's a completion appointment, but then you realize, oh, actually, we've still got trouble at the mill here. We need to do a bit more work. I need to contact PTSD Resolution, get approval for some more cases. Oh dear, I've it saved as a completion appointment. What can I do? I simply go back into the editing tool and I change it back to whatever I now want to call it, and save it like that. The same applies if you have a session set up and you think, oh, actually, you know what? They filled in all of those measures the last time. This time, I'm just going to ask them to fill in core 10. Then you simply go to that session, the appointment setup, and deselect the ones you don't want to ask about, right? So I guess my point is that you've got sort of 2 bites of the cherry with this. The profile will have those measures chosen by default, but as you add a new session, you've got control here over which measures, if any, you're going to ask the client to fill in at any given session. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Bill, what if, say you've completed, say, core 10 and Pragmatic Tracker, and then afterwards you realize that maybe you want to add in another one? How do you edit to add another one in?
Is that you mean you want to add in another one before the clients come in for the session and you want them to fill it in, or you decided to do it on paper in the session, or what?
You've done it on paper in the session.
Right.
And then once you've kind of added it, you realize that maybe you haven't added another form that you had there.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want to add in another scale.
Yeah, right. So, oops, sorry. Just make that a different date there. August the 14th, let's say, that'll do. Create. Right, so 14th of August, let's imagine the client came in, and before they came in, they'd filled in their core 10 and their goals, right? But then in that session, you wanted to check in with the impact of event scale, right? Yeah. So you pull out a paper version and you get them to fill that in. And then how do you get it in afterward? That's what you're asking me, right? Yeah, okay, so you go to that session, 14th of August, you go to the edit over here, you scroll down and you simply click impact of events 15 and save. And now it's there ready for you to fill in. Okay?
Okay, so the edit is in the session
bar. Right. So you've got your session list, and these are the edit tools over here, right? Okay. So anything you want to change, a date, a session type, a measure that you want to add in later, that's how you do it, right? Mm-hmm. Is that clear for everybody? It's a great question. I'm delighted you're asking these questions, because these are things that are going to be important for people who watch this stuff afterwards, hopefully, to pick up on. Yeah, Jim.
So is that my question answered?
Not quite. So Jim's question, if correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. Jim's question was: client comes in and they did all their measures beforehand. How do I send them a feedback after the session? Isn't that your question, Jim?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, number one, if your profile has been set up to auto, they will automatically get it. It will just go out anyway through the system, right? 6 hours after the appointment ends. So you can forget about it. It'll happen automatically, right?
Okay.
But the other thing is, if for some reason you hadn't chosen auto here, what would then happen is you're in that session, you've done your session, and at the end, you simply can go here, send reminder and feedback link to the client, and you click OK, and it'll go out to them, right? Automatically. So you've got a manual override within the system here at any point, both in terms of sending out measures beforehand or sending out feedback questionnaires afterwards, right?
Okay.
Got that?
Yeah, not quite.
Okay, carry on.
For some reason or other, I took out the F5 before the session.
You turned it off.
Yeah. So it's not there to send.
Right. Okay. So this is more or less the same as Carmen's point, right? So let's go back in here. So what you're saying is you had done that. Oops. There. Like that, right? Now, if it ain't ticked, it can't go, right?
Exactly.
So so it has to be ticked, right? Now the default. Let's go back here. The default will be with the F5. Some people, you know, the difference between F5 and F7 is obviously 2 questions. It's just 2 more areas for comment. Some people prefer F7. Some people prefer F5. I don't mind it all. So some people don't do it at all. But it's really good to get the feedback from the client, obviously, you know. But if it ain't ticked, it won't go, right? So if you've turned it off when you've created a session, let's go here to this one. So if you've turned it off, it can't go. It has to be ticked there, right? Once it's ticked there, if you've got auto switched on, it will go automatically. If you don't have auto switched on, you can override anyway, or you can always override anyway by simply going here, send reminder and feedback link, right?
Yeah.
But obviously that won't be there unless it has been ticked, you see?
Exactly.
It won't present. Now there's one more thing just while I'm in this bit. There will be times that a client just doesn't, you know, they've decided, yeah, I'll do it by email. I like getting emails to fill in measures. And then I get an email, I'm on my bigger screen at home, blah, blah, blah. But there will be times, and I'm sure you've all had this, where the damn thing isn't turned up. The client just hasn't got it, right? That is incidentally one of the big reasons we've introduced SMS, because okay, it's on their phone, they're filling it in on their phone, but at least you know the link has come through, and it'll 100% guarantee it'll come through SMS as long as the phone number is correct. But if for whatever reason either they're not getting those emails from Pragmatic Tracker, or they can't find them in spam or whatever, I mean, that is a problem. Sometimes they first go to spam. You've got to tell them look in spam and white label them and, you know, say the address is safe. But if for any reason you want to send a link directly to either the outcome measures or the feedback measures, the link is right here for you. Look at it just there. So you can take it from there, copy it, and paste it into an email. Now, have we got Fiona here today? Fiona, no, she's not here, is she? I thought Fiona was coming today. Fiona Sheldon brought up a really great point. She said, I don't use SMS or email with clients because some of them are so chaotic, but they like WhatsApp. And I use WhatsApp a lot to communicate with clients that, you know, sort of have WhatsApp conversations about stuff with them anyway, you know. So I said, fantastic. If you have WhatsApp as a desktop, I don't know if you realize, but on a laptop or a computer, you can have a WhatsApp desktop. So it just opens, your WhatsApp opens in your computer screen, and you can write your messages in there. It makes it a lot easier. So you can just paste this link straight into that WhatsApp and send it out like that as well. And that applies obviously to the outcome measures too. So that would be like here. So this, when you click on this one, it says, click OK to send a reminder, tick to include the measures. If you would prefer to send a personal email, copy and paste this link here into your personal email, and you can write directly. But obviously you can copy and paste that into WhatsApp as well, you know? Is that making sense for everybody? Anyone? Have I lost anyone? Thumbs up, that looks good. I'll just check on you all. Right. Okay, good. So we've covered quite a bit in half an hour. That's not bad. Right. Okay, so we've dealt with how the client arrives to you, how you'll get a message from. Now, this won't obviously apply to your existing cases that you've already got, but hopefully from any new cases from now on, This is the protocol we're trying to get in place, right? So Carolina or Claire will will message you within Pragmatic Tracker about the new client. Obviously, they'll have been on the phone to you or whatever anyway, or WhatsApping, messaging, etc. There'll be a message in Pragmatic Tracker about the case. You'll get a message to tell you there's a message in there, and then you go on and you do your case and all the rest of it. And any communication back about that client, got to go back to my screen share again. Any communications, you've got this business in here. So about that new referral, you can open it and you can reply to it. So you can reply to Carolina, I don't know, might be asking for more sessions or whatever like that. Now, the next thing I want to just talk about to help is closing of cases. Now, I think I probably wrote to you all recently about this. In an ideal world, what would happen is that the cases that are open in Pragmatic Tracker under your list would just be the cases you're currently actively working on at the moment, right? Now, circumstances will always alter cases. There will be times when you've asked for more sessions. There will be times when a client has just gone away for a month or 6 weeks and you know they're coming back and the plan is to see them again in 6 or 8 weeks time and they remain open. But there are times when clients fall through the cracks, when they just end up languishing in your open list and actually they've dropped out of treatment and they really need to be closed out. So what I'm encouraging you to do really on behalf of PTSD Resolution is what I would describe as good case management hygiene, if you like, to sort of regularly go into your list, look at your open list and think, oh, hang on, I haven't seen this guy for 6 months. You know, this is ridiculous. You know, lost contact or whatever like that, and close the case. Now, how you close a case, hopefully you realize this, you just go to profile and you go closed, very simple, closed planned, closed unplanned. Whichever it is. A planned ending would be where you've arrived at an agreement with the client, we're done. An unplanned ending would be you've lost contact, they've fallen through the cracks or whatever like that. And obviously you can then message Carolina to say case such and such is closed and whatever. And now there was some discussion last night about invoicing for sessions and I think the general, I haven't actually, maybe Tony you can chip in and clarify this in a minute, but my understanding is the general way this should operate is that you do your treatment, you close the case, you submit your invoice and you get paid. But obviously someone was bringing up last night about how it came to the end of the accounts year and the accountant wanted them to submit anything that any work that they had in the pipeline, etc., like that. So that's something to be sorted out. Tony, would you have any comment about that, about the typical way that the whole invoicing process works? Are you there? Oh, I have to unmute you. I'll unmute you. Oh, Tony? There you are. Good man.
Good morning. I was just been lurking, really.
Oh, yeah, good man. Well, we know you're there, Tony.
Well, you can't hide with Zoom, can you? You can hide your face, but not your... Anyway, good morning. And first of all, it's an opportunity just to say thank you to Bill for all this fantastic work. Completely beyond me, totally baffling, but thank goodness some of you understand it, because the product, I tell you, is going to hit people between the eyes in the next 12 months or so, when we work out quite which eyes and which stick to use. Invoicing, as far as I'm concerned, you can invoice whenever you like, so long as the precision of the client number and the client sessions are there recorded in the invoice.
All right.
You can do it whenever you like.
Oh, fine. So as case doesn't necessarily have to be finished, you can invoice for sessions you've completed.
No, because you know, some people
sometimes they're ongoing for a long
way
time.
beyond the 6 sessions, and so
Oh,
you
perfect.
want to get your money.
Good. I should have had you there last night, Tony. That would have answered that question very succinctly. Great. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. That's perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So anyway, I guess my general point is let's aim for good case management and try to avoid having cases lurking in the system. Really, what's very important about this is you can't really discuss results about a case that's open, because obviously they're still in treatment. And so, you know, those scatter charts I was showing you is always going to be on closed cases, because that's where you would assess, like, yes, the person has come through the process of treatment, they've arrived at an end, albeit an unplanned end some of the time. And, you know, that is the nature of the work we do. There will be unplanned endings. You can't get away from that, you know. So that's that. Good. Any burning questions in anyone's head at the minute before I move on? Anne? Just unmute yourself, Anne.
Okay,
yeah,
I think I've
great.
done it. Yes, so the system's fantastic and I really enjoy using it, and everything
Great.
is wonderfully automated at the moment. And I really like the idea that we've got that contact with Carolina.
Yeah.
You have that messaging system.
Yes, yes.
And I was just wondering if that sort of continues all the way to the end, is there any sort of possibility that you could press a button and have an automatic invoice?
Yes. I've got one word for that. No. Sorry, no, we're not there yet. I mean, you know, we aspire to continually develop and improve Pragmatic Tracker all the time. That is sort of moving us into moving us into a different sort of territory, really, of more of an accounts management system. So I'm really sorry about that, but
no worries.
We'll put it on the wish list, Anne.
I'll put it on the wish list. Anyway, it's great as it is, so thank you.
Okay, good. Right.
I'll unmute myself.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to move on now to something else that is very dear to my heart, that I know causes confusion for people, which is goals. Now, okay, so the goals feature has been greatly improved along with the charts, and I want to sort of try to drive this home. And this is really going to come on to the bit about the future that I want to talk about in a minute. So I'm not suggesting for a minute that all of you are going to do this, but some of you may do this and some of you may find it really interesting. And I just want you at least to know how to do it, right? So the idea is this, that our clients come to us and we assess them, you know, we do our information gathering, we've got the measures we use that are filled in with them. But, and you probably automatically do this anyway in the nature of the way you work, is to identify, well, you know, John, you're coming to see me today. Hopefully you're going to come and, you know, see me over the next 6 sessions. What are the most important things you need to see change? This is my type of language. What are the most important things you need to see change taking place on, so you know the work we're doing together is helping? That's my typical sentence. You'll have your own, right? And I'm sure you all do varieties of this. Now, John says, Bill, if only I could sleep. You say, great, to sleep better, goal, right? So John, note to 10, where is that at the moment? If note is as bad as it could possibly be, 10 is solved, achieved. Where are you? I'm 2. Jot it down in the session, right? This is your first session. No, it may not be your first session, by the way. It might be your 3rd session before you actually get on to identifying goals, right? But because maybe at the first session, they're so upset or you're so busy with so much else that you actually, you're just at like, I just got to help this person calm down. And maybe it's not until session 2, 3, 4 even before you identify, get to the point of saying, well, now we've got you calmed down. Now you're sleeping better. What are the things you want to achieve, right? So it could be at any particular session. But the point is, in that session, you identify a goal. And I'm just going to take a simple one, to sleep better, right? Now, you might go on and say, great, John. Now, what else is there? What else is there on this wish list of yours? And it might be, you know, I don't know, to rebuild my relationship with my son, or whatever it might be. Where are you on that 0 to 10? 1. Great. John leaves the session. How do you get this information into Pragmatic Tracker? And this is the bit I really want to clarify, because it has caused some confusion. I've made endless videos about this to try to explain it, but if I've got you live here, I've got the chance to explain it now, right? So client has left, let's say that session on the 8th of August, pretend, right? And they'd filled in all their measures, and I want to capture those goals related to that session, right? Now, what are the steps? The first thing is, unless this is ticked, just like with Jim and the feedback measure, unless the goals is ticked, you can't record goals. So the first step is to make sure in that session record that you want the goals recorded in, that this is ticked. Okay, step number 1. Step number 2, when I go, at the moment when I look in here, oh, the goals are there because I'd already built one. Anyway, forget about that. I'd already built one last night, I guess. I tell you what, it doesn't matter, right? So pretend that first goal isn't there, right? Click to add new goal. Now, here's the thing. What will often happen is that you're writing notes up possibly the next day, or maybe 2 days later because you've got busy, right? So, you know, you just haven't got around. Maybe you saw the client at 6 o'clock in the evening, you're starving, hungry, you go home and you think, I'll write those notes up tomorrow. You go in to write the notes tomorrow, and what happens in Pragmatic Tracker is this date will always default to the day that you're actually in, right? But you have to change that date in order for the goal to appear to be the same as the session that you're associating it with, right? So let me go back again. In fact, let me go to this goals here and get rid of that goal for a second, rather than make it more obvious, right? So I'm in, let's hallucinate. I saw the client on the 8th of August. They filled in their measures, and I've identified goals. The client leaves. It was the 9th of August, the next day. For example, I was filling in the measure. I must change that date to the 8th of August. It must be matching the date of the session, because if it isn't, it won't be associated with it. I haven't, so to sleep better. Oops, sorry. Sleep better. Sleep through the night. Now, what's important to understand also about the language that you write in here, this is the client's language. It's not your interpretation of the client. It should be the client's words, right? Because when they come to, what you're doing is you're building a measure which the client is going to then be presented with to score at the next time, if you decide to have them measure it the next time. So it should be their words, not your interpretation. It shouldn't be in here, client would like to sleep better, because what they're going to read is that whatever you write in here, they will read, right? So you make that go there, the 8th of August, save, and when you go back to the session record on the 8th of August, hold on, where are we? 8th of August. It should appear. What have I done? Oh, there we are. Sleep better, right? So the goal will be there for you to score. There we are. Sleep better. There's the goal, right? So the goal is now presenting for you to score. Now, it's only this very first time you've identified a goal, you have to score it yourself in that session, right? Because you've had the discussion with the client in the session. But obviously, what you've now done is created a new item. And if you had 4 goals, you'll have 4 sleep, you'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 showing up here. And those are there for the client to score at subsequent appointments. Does that make sense? Am I getting there with this? Let me just turn off my screen share so I can see the whites of your eyes. Right. Everybody okay? Is that making sense? Okay, so two things. You must have goals selected in the session that you want to record the goals in. You must make the date of the goal is reported the same as that session that you're wanting to measure it in, right? Then you can add in. Now, what I'm going to do for 1 second is jump across to the demo system, because I want to show you what this looks like. Demo 3. Oops, damn. Just bear with me 1 second. Password, copy. Demo 3. Bill. Oops. More haste, less speed, Bill. Right. Right. And then find this client here. That example 2. Right. Good. So I'm just jumping over to a demo system to give you an idea of what this can sort of look like. Am I in the right one? Right. Okay, so you've got Pat example 2 here, right? Now, this is actually showing you problems and goals. The reason we have goals and problems is because it might be that the language that the client is using is not really a goals sort of language. It may be that it's more comfortable identifying the problems they want to see a reduction in. And in fact, it could be the case where early in treatment, you're talking more about the reduction of the problems, but then you move towards emphasis on the goals. And they work in both. They work in basically the same way. So whatever I'm saying for goals applies to problems as well. Obviously, with problems, you score it the opposite way around. 10 is the worst it could be. 0 is the best it could be. Where a goal, 0 is the worst it could be. 10 is the best it could be. Now, in here, I've put examples of both of these in. Poor sleep, anxious, angry with partner, goals, exercise more, meditate, join a book club. Now,
Bill, can I just ask you a question?
yes.
I'm just aware of the scoring. Is 10 always the worst, or is 10 the best? And are we all sticking to the same one?
Right, great question. 10 is when you're achieving a goal, you're moving towards the goal.
Yeah.
So 10 is the best you could be. When you're trying to manage the reduction of symptoms or a problem, you're trying to bring it down from 10 to 0. So it's the opposite way around. So the scoring for goals goes up, the scoring for problems comes down with improvement, right? So it's 0 to 10 or 10 to 0, depending on which one you use. Now, my suspicion is most of you will be comfortable, more likely with working with goals as opposed to problems, you know, but that's completely fine. I just want you to be aware of what is in here in Pragmatic Tracker, right? Now, I want to go to charts because this gives me the opportunity to show you, and you know, if you've attended some of the other training I've done, you'll know about this, but the charts has really been improved considerably. You've far more control now. So over here, you've got the control, right? So I can switch them all off. There's nothing showing. Now I just want to go to goals. Now, here we have what used to be on the old system, the aggregate score of all the goals. So even if you'd 8 goals, they will be aggregated into one average score, right? Now, what you've got is the individual goals are there with their own little chart, right? And in fact, you could look at all of those individual goals without looking at the aggregate score. So there's 3 goals here, and you're seeing the change on those goals relative to each other. And you want to know what are those goals. Just click on a scoring point and it all drops down below. And what we've also added in here, time for a sip of water, is that not alone do you see the score at this particular scoring point on this session, you also see what each score was the first time it was scored and the time before this time. Now, this was a request by human givens practitioners. Some human givens practitioners said, I love the chart, But what would be really helpful in my discussion with the client is item by item to look at the change. So like, for example, if we were on core 10, sorry, let's go to core 10, same thing. Item by item now, you can see the change on the individual items. So it might have been, you know, look at this, I felt able to cope when things went wrong. Not at all, scoring 4 very badly, but that has improved. So this is your conversation page, if you like. And you know, the aspiration here would be that you're using this page, this screen with your client to engage in discussion with them and really pull out the richness of the story that their measures are actually telling them in here, you know. So I wanted to point that out, that like with goals, you can see the aggregate of all of the goals, but you can also see the individual goal. Now, another point about goals though is that, you know, let's say you've identified 4 goals with somebody and you're measuring them session by session, but they achieve one of the goals. They're sleeping better. Well, you don't want to keep pestering them, asking them time after time, Bill, I've already achieved that bloody thing. Stop hassling me, asking me about it every week. So what you do is you switch it off. So how you do that is you just click on the goal and you've got an active or inactive button here. So basically, if you switch it off, it will drop it out as an item out of the goals questionnaire. So the next time they're presented with the measure, with the goals measure, that item, they won't be asked about it. It's still retained in Pragmatic Tracker, of course. It's still there to show them on the chart and all the rest of it, what they've achieved with it. But it's just you don't keep pestering them, asking them about it. Does that make sense? So to get to that, any goal there, you can see join book club. Oh, I want that to be active. There we go. Save, and it's now active. Meditate has been achieved. I can deactivate it like that, right? How are we doing? All good? What do you think of this?
Great.
Good. We really like it. I mean, I've always felt that, you know, oh my gosh, you know, we have all this struggle with the people who want RCTs and all the rest of it. But I say, well, you know, what about if we could unpack more of the story of all of these clients? Can you imagine, and this is now moving me on very nicely onto my final points really, which is good because we've got sort of 5 minutes to get to the hour. Let me go to my little slide here, the future, and share that with you. Share screen, is that the one it is, I think there. Right. Right, the future. Okay, so what I was saying last night is, and Tony, we've talked about this so much. So for years, I mean, really years, we've been knocking on the door of so many places because we've come up against this constant issue of, oh, you're not NICE approved. Oh, there's no RCT evidence to show the effectiveness of what you do. There's no randomized trials. There's no controlled studies. You know, how do we know that your treatment really works? Blah, 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 blah. And we have tried in every which way imaginable to find opportunities to run RCTs, to get the funding for it and all the rest of it. And in the end, it's just very, very difficult to do, because when you're not part of that sort of institutionalized world out there, it's very difficult to make this happen. At the end of the day, this is a small, lean organization that runs incredibly effectively with really a pretty small budget. And so what we've been talking about is, well, okay, what could we do just ourselves? What could we do? Stuff the lot of them. We won't bother trying to get any money from anyone. We'll just see what we could do ourselves to tell our story in maybe a better way. Now, a few years ago, King's College wrote a very comprehensive report based on our data, and it was very good. And it turned into a published paper, and that's great. And they came up with some recommendations at the end of it. And one of the recommendations they came up with was your data would be more valuable if you use measures that are more commonly used in the NHS and in IAPT and all the rest of it, right? That was number one, and which are measures like GAD-7, PHQ-9, Work and Social Adjustment Scale, etc. So that's one thing. And the other thing is also, if you had a measure that's more acceptable as a sort of a measure of PTSD, and they mentioned a measure called the PCL5. Now, we've shied away from this up to now because, you know, this is a well-oiled wheel. All you guys out there do incredible work, and, you know, you're diligent. The story, you know, the picture painting 1,000 words of the scatter chart there shows the results. And everyone is used to working with core 10 and impact of events and all the rest of it, right? But the bottom line is, what's in my head as a proposition is that we don't change the entire mechanism, and most of it goes on. But can you imagine if we just had 100 cases where we had still have the core 10 and the impact of event scale, but we also have GAD-7, PHQ-9, Work and Social Adjustment Scale, whatever, all that IAP stuff, and this PCL5. Now, just 100 cases, right? So in my hallucinations, it's like maybe 10 practitioners, 10 clients each over a 12-month period. At the end of that period, and if I could twist the arm of those practitioners to do the goals thing as well, right? We would have a rich body of data on 100 cases where we would be able to show, number one, whether you measure them with core 10 or the IAP measures, they both show change of a similar sort of magnitude. This would then retrospectively massively validate all of our existing data going back over the last 11 years, number one. Number two, we would have done what they've asked us to do, so that should help us with the likes of King's. But number three, if we had the richness of the goals information as well, we would be able to tell a much richer story about those clients, because it would no longer be just, well, you know, they came in at this score and they went out at that score. It would be, they identified that they wanted to see change taking place in this part of their life and that part of their life, etc. And we would be able to tell that story. And I believe that we could do this without anybody's help from anyone else. I think we could do this, and we have enough knowledge and expertise amongst us as a group to be able to put this together. And okay, it's still not going to be the RCT stuff and all the rest of it, but it would be really us telling our story in a very comprehensive way. And I just think it would be a very good step forward. So this is my vision of the future. Now, somebody last night asked a great question, I thought, after I said all this. He said, well, Bill, I see a couple of clients for PTSD resolution, but obviously I see lots of human givens clients, you know, in the rest of my work. So is this sort of research that you're suggesting, is it something that should be done by the Human Givens Institute? And I said, absolutely, it should be done. And again, I'm there as somebody to help. I stand outside of all of this now in a way as an independent. And I think that's better, actually, because I don't really have any axe to grind about anything. But it makes complete sense to me. But that is something that has to be, you know, again, the Human Givens Institute is a lean organization that has to manage, you know, on small workforce and all the rest of it. And a lot of the work that's done carrying forward is done by people volunteering and all of that. But again, within the Human Givens Institute, there's every reason, if you could get 10 practitioners with, you know, to take 10 clients each, to do exactly the same thing. And indeed, I even thought later on last night, that would be a very interesting comparison, wouldn't it? To see the difference between those PTSD resolution cases managed and other human givens people as well. It's 2 minutes past 11. I've done it. I was much slower last night. I don't know. We were like 15 minutes over last night, but I've got to 2 minutes past 11. Any comments on what I've been rabbiting on about here?
I think you're doing a great job, Bill. I really do. We're so blessed and lucky. I feel really privileged to be part of Pragmatic Tracker.
Thank you.
On both PTSD resolutions and human givens. I just feel that compared to a lot of other therapists from other organisations, they do not have this amazing tool, which I think looks really good, not just for funding, but to evidence people and organisations that I'm working with how good this measures are. It's a fantastic tool. So well done, you. Oh,
thank you very much. Well, thank you, all you guys as well. I mean, this wouldn't happen without the cooperation of all you guys out there. Keeping all of this going. And I mean, it's I've been going on with all this carry on for 15 years now at least, and I Tony knows well our frustrations with all of these doors we've been knocking on and all the rest. And even this year before lockdown, I was at a NICE conference in London, and I was saying to them, I'm here representing a charity, PTSD Resolution. We're now in our 11th year. We've helped thousands of people. We're right there. Somebody picks up a phone and they're in front of a practitioner usually within a week. It's a fantastic service, and yet we keep getting locked out because we don't have this type of evidence. And it went across the whole panel at this thing, and none of them had an answer. And in the end, they said, well, the vice chair of NICE is here. Go and speak to her. I spoke to her, queued up to speak to her. And she said, yeah, but, it's still, you need the randomized clinical trial. I thought, oh, God, give me a break. I just want to go and throw up, It's so exasperating. So I think I'll stuff a lot of them. Let's see what we can do just ourselves, And it's the same with human givens. It's like no one else is going to make this happen. It's up to the individuals to say, right, what can I do? And this is really the world of the research practitioner. It's like that practitioner who's saying, Tony, jump in.
I show my face briefly. We're working at the moment with an organization called COBSIO, which is the umbrella organization that oversees the work of all the accredited service charities. And a phrase that has come into the discussion is, quote, other forms of evidence, unquote. And it is just possible that what Bill has just been talking about, 100, and I would actually, I've written on my notes, why don't we have 100 of HG non-military clients as well, because that really would be a nice comparator.
Absolutely.
That may well, that could possibly form the basis of, quote, other forms of evidence,
yeah,
quote, to shove up certain orifices around.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, honestly, we've had so many meetings with so many people over the years and all the rest of it. And I think, well, this is something we can achieve. We've got the tool to do it that allows us to do it.
It's a bore having to have these other measures, but still, if that's got to be, it's got to be, I guess.
Well, and that's why I'm saying, I would hate to be going out and asking every practitioner to do a whole raft of new stuff, right? Yeah. But if we can just select 100 clients, maybe 10 practitioners, it's not a huge burden.
You've got to find 10 masochistic practitioners.
well, of course, bear in mind, if you do the questionnaires, if you send the links out, it takes all the burden out of it, It's more about helping at a very initial stage, recruiting the clients into that little research project, if you like, and getting their cooperation to explain about how helpful it is, which is obviously always easier to do once the client has built a relationship with a practitioner and all the rest of it, it's a little bit harder at the very beginning when somebody first makes contact, but we have to work that out. But I think the starting point is to say, right, come on, let's make this happen, you know, because I think it's achievable, you know.
Would it be more achievable, because you're saying 10 clients, 10 practitioners? That seems a lot of clients for one practitioner. Wouldn't it be best just to have 4 clients with more practitioners? That kind of seems to be more achievable.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It might well be like that. I mean, I'm just simplistic about it. It could be 20 practitioners with 5 clients each or something like that. You know,
because I think it's more of a signing up for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, the burden for you as a practitioner should almost be negligible, really, if you think about it. I mean, there's the goals part, definitely. There's the goals part. But my suspicion is most of you do that goal stuff anyway. You know, you do it automatically.
You should do under rigor.
It's in the nature of exactly RIGAAR, you know, it's in the nature of what you do anyway. So this is just formalizing it a little bit. So there is the goals thing, but in terms of the other measures, because it's all automated so easily, that reduces that burden enormously, you know. So anyway, that's where my thinking is at the moment, which seems to be where Tony's thinking is at as well. And you know, you as I was saying last night in The Godfather 1, I don't know if you have ever seen The Godfather series, but at the beginning, you know, they're coming for the meetings, and there's the Undertaker guy, and he turns up and he says, you know, Godfather, can you help me? I'm being bullied by this guy. He's exploiting me. And the Godfather says, look, we'll take care of that. But what have you ever done for my family up to now? And he said, let me tell you this, the day may come, you may get a call where I will ask you to do something, right? So I was saying that this is like this, you may get the call, you know. That was after Sonny, his son was, and he said, don't let his mother see him like this. I love the movie, but anyway.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good.
So there we go, guys. Okay, we're at 9 minutes past 11, but thank you so much for coming along.
Thanks.
I'm gonna. I'll make this recording available to all people, great and small. The HDI people can listen to it. I don't mind who listens to it. Really, there's nothing. You know, it's hopefully there to help people. And you know where I am if you need me. We've got that button inside Pragmatic Tracker, support. If you ever get stuck with something, that comes straight through to me, and you'll usually hear from me in somewhere between 5 minutes and a few hours, unless I'm up a mountain somewhere or whatever, you know. Okay, so if that's it, we'll say goodbye. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All the best.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.